You are listening to Rouge Radio, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's time to get the point as Rouge Radio is ready to kick off.
Ready!
The best football talk with the best in the business.
So what is the cost? You have 2 first-round picks this year because the Argos are dumb enough to trade for Drew Willie.
A few rookies.
We go directly to the on-field product. We welcome to the show the 20th overall pick in this past Sunday's CFL draft, DeAndre Wright of the Alouettes. DeAndre, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
And the occasional Hall of Famer.
Please welcome Doug Brown, who is one of the members of the current class of 2016 in the CFL Hall of Fame. Doug, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you, guys, for the kind words and for having me on the program.
Rouge Radio is on the air. Here's your hosts, Robert Dalton and Tony Allen.
Mitchell over the middle, knocked down. Redblacks win for the first time. The Redblacks are Grey Cup champions.
Well, we are back for another edition, episode 379 of the Rouge Radio podcast, powered by the Canadian Football Podcast Network. My name is Robert Dalton, and joining me is Tony Go Raptors Allen. Tony, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, and you?
Are you all raptored out?
I'm not even really raptored up yet, but
So you're just toured. No.
I'm just kind of like I'm going with it, you know. Like I'll admit, you know what? It's tough because I don't want to be a guy that kind of poo-poos on the parade. It's just by pardon my language, but this is one of those, like, I don't enjoy basketball. I don't understand basketball. I don't want to watch basketball. The Raptors are not enticing me to watch any more basketball than I do now, which is zero. However, as someone who was a Blue Jays fan, I remember 92 and 93, and, you know, you just assume everybody in Canada loves you. And you know what? I will respect Raptors fans in the same regards. You know, they're doing something great. It's one team in the entire country. And, you know, they have to deal with those people that say just because they're the only team in Canada, I have to cheer for them. Again, I won't watch any basketball. The most effort I'm going to give is I will watch the highlights on purpose this time and not because I have to wait to go through them to get the hockey or football highlights. Like, I will watch them, and I hope the Raptors win the entire thing. But as far, I am not going around buying Toronto Velociraptor t-shirts or, you know, trying to claim I'm the biggest Velociraptor fan that's ever lived. But I hope the Velociraptors win.
Well, you're not a real fan because you actually call them by their technical name, not by a trademark name. No, I'm joking. My limit to basketball fandom this year is the same as it ever was. I don't watch full games. It's not that I don't like basketball. It just doesn't get to me. And I'll be honest, I've got caught up in the hoopla of Raptor mania. You know, follow the game via Twitter, and the odd time I'll just just tune in if there's nothing else on. But the biggest thing is to actually just watch with the last 2 minutes, because by God, is that just, that's anxiety, elation, celebration, depression all in one. And it is no wonder that the city of Toronto was just jubilant last night. And as we are recording Sunday, May 26th, spoiler alert, just in case you guys are, and just in case something happens, but city of Toronto, enjoy what you have right now, because the Golden State Warriors are going to win in 5, or at least that's what I've been told. Training camp is open last week. I'm assuming because of your work you haven't had an opportunity to visit McMahon or wherever Calgary is practicing. Just making an assumption.
Yeah, no, with my work and location, it makes getting to any camps very difficult. There was a couple of years ago, though, where the Stampeders did have a little camp here, one-day thing, and it was a lot of fun, but we haven't seen it since. But it'd be nice if it came back, and unfortunately, until we can start seeing highlight packages from the camp other than people running drills and, you know, the first preseason game gets broadcast on television, I kind of have to go what other people saying, but then I can't come on here and comment it because I'm stealing other people's work. So it's a little tricky right now trying to pick up new names and find out what's going on. The only thing so far from camp that I thought was super exciting was following on people's tweets from the Eskimos game, I think it was. No, the Saskatchewan Roughriders camp, where Max Zimmerman, everyone's favorite German receiver, I believe it is, caught the first touchdown of the mini camp. So good job to Max. I think he's like my new favorite player, which is difficult because he's a rider. So we'll see how that develops over the year. Maybe he'll get traded.
And then he'll become your favorite player. Great.
Then, yeah.
Great career move, Max. There we go.
Yeah.
Get that name drop out there. Two things I've learned, and I want to get your thought about this. The first thing is I've learned about this podcast that after 379 episodes, you and I have chemistry that is lit as AF. I'll use the parental, the PG version. Lit AF. We learned that, I think, yesterday via Twitter machine, good friend of the program, Fake Gainer. The second thing is I have a distinctive laugh. I don't know. Do you think I have here's the context. So as everybody knows, we had Derek Taylor on the show, and I don't normally share the interviews of the show on my personal Facebook, just because I like to kind of leave that just for family. But I was kind of proud, not to pat myself on the back. I was kind of really proud of that interview, just because it went very swimmingly. It was like 101. It was kind of caught me off guard because I totally expected Tony to be in on the mix. So I shared it. So some people, one person listened to it, and up until my laughter, which is like a good 5 to 10 minutes into the interview, they didn't realize it was me. I'm not going to name any names. Mom, who apparently didn't know her oldest son's voice until a laugh. So, do I have a distinctive laugh? I mean, we've been on this podcast, and you've made me laugh quite a lot. Most, usually in regards to rants or any kind of offbeat comments, or if you're sending nudes for Cool Ranch Doritos, a little throwback there. Do I have a distinctive laugh?
No, nothing that. I guess I don't know if I just don't pay attention or it loses something coming through the Skype that we do our show through, but I don't know. I think it's a good hearty laugh. It's a real laugh, As someone who spent as much time in radio as I did, you kind of hear a lot of fake laughs, and when you hear a good genuine laugh, you don't really notice it. It's the people who fake laugh when you're listening to their show and they make a joke and to make somehow laughing makes their joke funny and not the actual substance of the joke makes it funny. I think I'm more inclined to notice those fake laughers than I do people with just good, genuine, hearty, humorous laughs. So if I'm not noticing it, then it probably means it's a really good laugh.
There we go. It's like, since she told me, I'm very conscious now, self-conscious about that. I was like, I won't laugh. Like, someone will tell a joke and I'll be like, okay, that's funny. But anyway, we're going to go into our little interview this week as part of our 9 Teams in 9 Weeks, as we recorded earlier, with Jeannine Ritchot, co-host of the Mouchoir Podcast, newest member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. And this is here's a small blip of what she had to say regarding the Ottawa Redblacks for the 2019 season. We know those passionate football fan bases. Yeah, you make one mistake, it doesn't matter how good you are. The next question I have is probably, I hope it doesn't result in a dial tone. Brad Sinopoli.
Yes. Yeah.
He's on the wrong side of 30, and don't want to say that he's lost a few, but he was a formidable receiver, top tier receiver, but this is probably going to be the first time where he's going to be the guy. He's got I think he's got RJ Harris with him, Ryan Langford's coming over, Caleb Hawley's coming over from Saskatchewan, but he's the guy, it looks like. What kind of pressure is Brad Sinopoli facing, and do you think that he can exceed expectations as the number one guy in Ottawa?
Well, I'm always going to have my boy Brad's back, right?
Oh, I know it, yeah. By the way, thank you for not hanging up on us. Brad.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm from friendly Manitoba too, so I don't hang up on people. No, I think Brad is definitely. Everybody's talking about how he's likely to be the go-to receiver. He's an extremely talented receiver, and he's had a job in the system, in the Elizondo system, where he's not the big player. He's not the player that makes the big plays like the Ellingsons and the Spencers. He's not the guy who goes long down the field. He's the guy that does a lot of the work after the catch. He's there in shorter situations, and then he uses his big body to get a lot of plays. It's hard to imagine him becoming one of those big Greg Ellingson type players. And so I actually don't think his role is going to change that much. I think they're going to continue to use him the same way that they have. There is a lot of talent in people like R.J. Harris, Dominic Rhymes. We didn't get to see a lot of it because there were the Ellingsons and there were the Spencers on the team. But I think that we're going to see those guys really come into their own and emerge this year. Another guy that I'm really looking forward to seeing is we got in the draft Wesley Lewis, and he's a 6'6" receiver out of the U.S., and we have never had such a big guy at receiver. Now, I don't think he's going to, he's a rookie. He's not going to light it up necessarily in his first year, but I think we're going to see him make some appearances in the offense as well. And I think it's really going to be, there might not be one guy who shines this year. There's going to be a real need for everybody to step it up and show their place. So at least that's what I'm hoping.
So you kind of celebrating an anniversary this year. It is 5 years for Ottawa Redblacks football, I believe, from when your season started. And I think it's pretty fair to say, as football fans, you have been pretty spoiled. If it was to happen, do you think there's been enough foundation laid in the first 5 years that Ottawa football could survive a couple of ugly seasons?
Yeah, it is a good question, and I get asked the question about being spoiled a lot because it's true. We've been to the Grey Cup 3 times in 4 years, and our history as a franchise is 5 years. So we've definitely been a lucky fan base to see that kind of success so early. And I think that's one of the reasons why it was so hard back in free agency, is people were already imagining, oh my God, what does this mean for the team? There's no doubt about it that if this team goes through a serious downturn this season, there's going to be people that are going to have a lot to say on Twitter. The pitchforks that Dalt's talked about are going to come back out. But I can't underscore enough when I talk about this team that one of the reasons I love them as much as I do is their involvement in the community. And I know that every team to some aspect is involved in the community. And that's not really new in the CFL, but the Ottawa Redblacks really seem to have made Ottawa and the people of Ottawa such a big part of their identity. And the fans respond to that. So there's going to be it's going to be tough to see a team that's done so well perhaps struggle. I'm not quite sure yet if I'm willing to say that this season is going to be I'm not going to say it's going to be all rosy. I'm not wearing my rose-colored glasses. I also don't think it's going to be a complete failure. I think we're going to see some new folks step into new roles. We're going to see some growth. It's not going to be as pretty as some of the other seasons, but I think the fans are going to stay true to this team because this team stays true to this community. And that we've just created a relationship with this team that it's really hard to ignore that.
Okay, and then I want to follow that up too with another quick question, because you're not just a CFL Redblacks fan. You also like to support the university side of football. Are you seeing much trickle down into fandom, attendances, excitement for the GGs because there's so much success with Ottawa?
the Panda game, which is the annual matchup between the two rival Ottawa universities, so the University of Ottawa GGs and the Carleton University Ravens. That's
and I suppose we love the Ravens, right?
No, I love the GGs. I will hang up if you're a Ravens. We're actually supposed to try to interview Nate Bahar for our next episode, and he was a Raven, so I think they gave him to me on purpose because they know where my university loyalty lies. But that Panda game, it's held at TD Place, 24,000. It's a complete sellout every single time, and I think a lot of that has to do with the football culture. That the football culture was kind of always here in Ottawa. It was just asleep for a few years, so it's like the rejuvenation of the football culture. Unfortunately, outside of the Panda game, GG's games are still, lower attendance. I think probably the same for Ravens. We just don't. University hockey is and hockey in general is kind of the bigger sport here in Canada, and that's okay. But the university teams also are finding a way to make themselves known a little bit more in the community. I go to a touchdown dinner every year for the GGs where they induct new members into the Hall of Fame, and there's a growing collection of people there year after year, and a lot of CFL players come back to these dinners to the places that they played football and to see some of the old gangs. So I would say that it's helping for sure to have such a strong CFL team. Maybe not trickling down as much as I would like to see it trickle down, but it's definitely starting.
You make fun of Brad Sinopoli, she stays on the line, but God forbid that you're a fan of the Ravens.
Hey, Brad was a GG. He understands.
All right, so one last question before we get your final prediction. Okay, so we let's go back to the football side here, because we talked about how lack of firepower the offense may have. On the other side, defensively, not much of a turnover, and you mentioned Chris Randall being added. Studs like Jonathan Rose, pending his first game suspension if that actually comes true. Sherrod Baltimore, guys like that. Is the defense good enough to keep up with the Ticats for first in the East, or are they good enough to offset what potential lack of offense that the offensive side may have?
I do think that the defense is good enough. The defense made great strides last year compared to the season before, and that was because of Noel Thorpe. You don't change something that doesn't need to be changed, and I think that's why you saw so little happen on defense in the off season, because we still got we've got the core, the heart of the defense in players like Pruno, players like Rose, who you mentioned, Sherrod Baltimore, who spent a good chunk of last season on the practice roster but stuck it out here and played his heart out and made his way back into the starting lineup, stayed here in Ottawa over the winter because he loves this place so much. Can you believe it? I wanted to leave Ottawa for the winter and go somewhere else. But so these guys are kind of like the heart and soul of the defense, and they've really gelled as a unit. You saw it in training camp, all the work that they're doing with the new rookies coming in. I think that this defense is going to be able to carry us through some tougher times in the East, because I do think that we're not going to have the time in the East that we have had in the last couple of seasons. But I have a lot of confidence in this defense being able to, shut down a Mazzoli-led offense in Hamilton. And, we still don't know who the quarterback is going to be in Montreal. And I think we just heard that Franklin is getting the start for Toronto, but he's had, some ups and downs, and he's been a bit shaky. So I think this defense has a shot at getting us into playoff position.
Well, you just insulted Franklin, so I can guarantee you Andrew is not going to want to come on your show anytime soon. All right, Jeannine, before you go, where do you see the Redblacks finish in the East this year?
Oh, it's a tough one. I've been not looking forward to this question all day long.
18-0? Just say 18-0.
Just pull a Ryan and say 18-0. No, I do think it's probably going to be a little below 500 this year. I'm thinking 8-10. I do think it's going to be a tough season, but I think it's going to be enough to get us into playoff contention. I just don't see Montreal turning things around, and with everything up in the air about ownership, there's still a lot of distractions going on in Montreal. They've made a lot of good changes in the off season, but I just don't think it's enough. Toronto could be the outlier this year with bringing Chamberlain in as head coach, and if Franklin can find his feet and grow as a quarterback, then they made some pretty significant moves in the off season. Maybe they're going to challenge more than I'd like to admit, but right now I'm going to say we're going to come in second place, and 8-10 is going to be good enough for second place in the East this year.
Awesome. So Jeannine Ritchot, co-host with Michaela on the Mouchoir Podcast, proud member of the Canadian Podcast Network. Jeannine, thanks again for staying up late with us, and congratulations, if we didn't say it before, on being new members of said network.
Oh, thank you so much, you guys, for having me on this show, and thrilled to be part of the network with all of you great podcasts this year. Looking forward to working more closely together over the year.
And that was Jeannine Ritchot of the Mouchoir Podcast, newest member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. Her and Michaela do a wonderful job, and we're looking forward to the new production going into the 2019 season. And as we go from there, we go directly to our 9 teams in 9 weeks, as we're almost done. I cannot wait. It's not that I don't enjoy talking to, I just like talking football. And as we're kind of getting to around like projections, predictions, I want to see some hard-nosed freaking football, and I cannot wait. As last week, as we previewed the Calgary Stampeders as our final day of our 9 teams in 9 weeks, but enough spoilers for that. Cough, cough, Joe Belensky. Let's go into the Ottawa Redblacks. Last year, the Redblacks were 11-7, first in the East, 6-3 at home, 5-4 on the road, 464 points for, 420 points against. Gone William Powell, Kyrie Bear, Sir Vincent Rogers, Greg Ellinson, Trevor Harris, Deontay Spencer. In Jonathan Jennings, Ryan Langford, Nate Behar, Chris Randall, and Caleb Hawley. Tony, where do you see the Redblacks finishing this year?
Well, I don't personally have a lot of great perspective when it comes to or good news if you're a Redblacks fan listening to this show. And I mean, I'm not going to be unmerciful or anything. When I did go through the schedule, I've got a funny story there eventually. But as for the Ottawa Redblacks team, it just seemed a lot leaving, not much coming back. There is other elements to it where like you mentioned with her, is that, the salary cap didn't go up, so they look like geniuses for, not spending too much money. But you still kind of notice there isn't much going out. Is Brad Sinopoli a number one guy? Oh, that's iffy. And I did like Brad Sinopoli. I thought it was a huge loss to the Stampeders when he was gone. But can you really put him to the front and depend solely on him and hope a supporting cast will be able to step up? I don't know about that. And the toughest thing is the quarterback as well. I mean, for as much as everyone loved and pumped the tires on Trevor Harris, I was never there even when Ottawa was winning. Even when Ottawa won the Grey Cup, you couldn't help but notice it was when finally you needed Henry Burris to come into the job. Last year, he was hot and cold. The Redblacks were hot and cold. It got to the Grey Cup. The Stamps and the Redblacks played on the same field, so I don't want to get into a big debate on how you could perform on a slippery field. They had to endure the same things. I don't really like any direction that the Redblacks going. I just not very promising. And I mean, Jonathan Jennings maybe has the inside track to be the starting quarterback. But again, it's like I brought up when we talked about the Saskatchewan Roughriders last week. If you have to be, if we can get the 2015 Zach Collaros, like you mentioned in the interview, if you have to resort to, but can we see the 2016 Jonathan Jennings come back? How many quarterbacks have we said that for? And how many did we not see go back to that kind of quarterback? Now, there's part of me that was a big Jennings backer when he first came in to the CFL, and we just loved how he launched the ball down the field. We loved how he scrambled. We thought, well, this is his BC Lions football team now. There's no way he's going to lose it. And then all of a sudden, he starts to taper off. If there's one thing I would love more in the world, is to see Jonathan Jennings just absolutely thrive this season, maybe get out from any quarterback's shadow, get out from Lule's shadow, not have to play under Trevor Harris's shadow, and, basically just give us all a big shit burger to eat because we've doubted him for the last couple of years. I would love that. But unfortunately, until I can see any evidence of it, I'm not going to hold my breath. This is the funny story I was telling you about. Because how it started, I was only writing down the team schedules. And then whatever our first team was, Montreal, I wrote them down, picked my winners. Then we did Toronto, then we do, and so forth. And I got to Ottawa today, and I had realized I had picked Ottawa going 0-18. By doing it the way I was doing, I had inadvertently put Ottawa at 0-18. Now, I do not think they're going to be 0-18, so I do apologize. And lesson learned, never do your standings this way ever again. I made a little note, do the whole league and go through it once, because I feel absolutely awful that, essentially I just put Ottawa at 0-18, and I don't think it's going to be that bad. There's just, no matter how bad of a team is, even the worst Montreal teams, I can't see them, saw them going 0-18. Now, it doesn't mean I think, doesn't mean I think spectacular things are coming from Ottawa this season, and I'm really not going to make it much better than 0-18. I see it more as a 5-15 football team. I just see a really, really ugly season coming up for the Ottawa Redblacks, which is why I asked Jeannine, are they ready for some ugly times in Ottawa after being spoiled? Because I think this is about as worse we're going to see from Ottawa in quite a long time.
I'm just going back and through, and while I'm giving this prediction, I have something to go as far as backing up everybody, or at least something that Jeannine mentioned when we were talking about the Noel Thorpe. She mentioned why, if something's not broken, why fix it? And to be honest, she's got a point, because why would you, right? But we've seen Alouettes records in the past, and I know I'm not mistaken. I know that we've talked about. I know we're previewing the Ottawa Redblacks, and the reason why I'm bringing up the Alouettes, because Noel Thorpe was a strong defensive coordinator for the Alouettes for the past 5 years prior than last year. The Alouettes had record their least amount of wins was in 2017 when they went 3-15. I don't believe he even finished that. I think it was 2016. No, 2017 is when he left. I could be mistaken. Someone please fact check me. Before that, he had a record of 6-12 with the 2015 Alouettes. So sometimes a good defense, if you have the proper studs, which I think Ottawa does. I'm not going to say anything bad about the defensive side. They're not world beaters, but they're a very stingy group. So, at that being said, Ottawa's 11-7 last year with a guy like Trevor Harris, and I don't imagine the offense is going to be close to what the production that they've had. They lost Deontay Spencer. Brad Sinopoli is going to be the number one target. Guys like Caleb Hawley, Brad Sinopoli is, I would imagine, a very good, solid number 2 receiver, maybe even 3 because of his age. And he's surrounded by a lot of number 3 receivers, Caleb Hawley, Ryan Langford, a lot of number 3, number 4 receivers. With Jonathan Jennings, and these are guys that they run intermediate routes very well. Jonathan Jennings is a guy that loves to toss the long ball quite frequently, and he's really good at it. He really is good at it. It's the 5 to 10 yards, the 10 to 15 yards that he has issues with the accuracy. Now, he's going to have a lot of targets within that, but at the same time, we're dealing with a depth of receivers, but only that because there's not going to be that number two guy that we expect. They don't have a legit running attack, in my opinion. No disrespect to Moses Madu. He's not going to be putting up the yards per rush production that Powell did last year. I'm really surprised that the Red Blacks haven't reached out to Ernest Jackson this year. At this point, he's still a free agent, and I'm really shocked that they never made a push for Jeremiah Johnson. At the same time, defensively, I expect them to hold a fort. I'm going to say that perhaps maybe we will not see a Western crossover this year, but Ottawa, I mentioned that, when we were dealing with the Alouettes, and I remember that's the phrase is tattooed in my brain. I said, they're going to do their part to avoid a Western crossover, and they may even push Ottawa out of hosting the playoff spot for the first time in a long time, since the 2014 season, which was their inaugural year. At 11-7, offensively, they were inconsistent. I can't imagine that they're going to be even close to that with a guy like Jonathan Jennings and the rest of the I'll call them Renegades, because that's to me. I imagine the Renegades are going to be out there offensively, whereas the Red Blacks are going to be on the defense. I'm going to say positively, optimistically, because they were good and they've kept a lot of the people defensively. I'm going to say optimistically 7-11. Going into the 2019 season. I can't remember what I had with the Alouettes, but I imagine that the Alouettes are going to be pushing for that second playoff spot, maybe even making the playoffs for the first time since 2014. Well, that'll wrap it up, and that are 9 teams in 9 weeks, brought to you by SeatGiant.ca. Enter the promo code Rouge for discounts on sporting events in your area. You can follow us on Facebook at Rouge at facebook.com/Rouge Radio. You can like us on Twitter at Rouge Radio. Myself, you can follow us at Rouge Daltz, and Tony at Tony Rouge. And please review us on Apple, on any whatever your podcast apps. If it's available to review us, please do so. We've got a very good rating, and I'll appreciate everybody that's rated us, but I love to see the feedback, and I appreciate that. And even if it's constructive criticism or criticism, we love to hear. If you have any requests, any emails to send to us, we don't have any emails this week, but you can at thenewrouge@gmail.com. Tony, any final thoughts?
No, not too much other than I can't believe we're down to one team. I realized that after we did the Saskatchewan show and you teed up Ottawa was going to be next, and I thought, geez, that's only like I was trying to think of all the teams we still have to do, and it was like, geez, Ottawa's like the Grey Cup runner-up. That means we're almost done. I can't believe we've raced through almost all 9 teams in this, and every time we talk about the episode as we continue 9 teams, and we're the back half of 9 teams, like, wow, like now that this show is done, we have Calgary. And that's it. And then we start predicting football games, and maybe I might accidentally say something intelligent because I'll get a score right or something, or go 3 for 4. So it's very exciting times, and I just, I'm happy right now. You see all these things there's a lot of negativity, even some negativity that I've contributed myself on social media, and just shut that out right now, and enjoy that the preseason is underway. Sounds like the Eskimos beat the Lions, at least one preseason game I heard. So we're rolling football, and I'm glad it's back.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, it wasn't televised, but strong kudos to the boys at 630 Ched, Morley and Dave Campbell, a good friend of the program, Dave Campbell, who are putting out the audio version of what we see on TV, because I felt like I was there, and I sent out a few tweets from the Rouge Radio account as if I was there. So, spoiler alert, I wasn't. So, yeah, and kudos to the Eskimo Empire podcast, who were periscoping their experience. Also felt I was there via them. So, Tony, We're going to end this week with a dad joke. Before then, next week, we're going to bring on Ryan Ballantyne, a host of the CFL Horseman podcast. Also, if you're new to the show and you don't listen to that, you know him from Big Brother Canada Season 6. And Tony's rolling his eyes because he hates reality TV show. He hates them. Tony, ready for the dad joke?
Let's do it.
All right. So I never wanted to believe that my dad was stealing from his job as a road worker. But when I got home, all the signs were there.
Saw that one coming from a while ago. That one, you could have mailed that to me. I saw that one coming. It was okay, but not one of your best.
That's all right.
There's some constructive criticism. I'm just saying, I saw that one coming from a mile away.
There we go. Well, for next week, episode 380, we finish our 9 teams in 9 weeks. For Tony, I'm Daltz. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.